Advent. What is Advent? I know we use that word and we just think Christmas, but it has a very particular meaning. Advent is twofold. Advent is one, it's a season in which we look back and we remember the incarnation, that God put on flesh and blood, that Jesus was born. We remember that, but it's not just that. Advent also has this waiting element to it. We are waiting for the return of Christ, and so it's dualistic in its approach. It's looking back at what Jesus has done already and what is to come with Jesus. And so, again, we celebrate this. The first week of Advent is hope. I'll start this sermon with just a story that you may have never heard before. January 23rd of 2006, Ricky McGee was driving through the Australian outback, not the restaurant, the real outback. And he was going to a brand new job. He was driving down the road, he saw a group of hitchhikers. Okay, this is why you never pick up hitchhikers. He decided he was going to pick up hitchhikers. The last thing that he remembers is they got into the car with him. The next memory he has is he is in a shallow grave, wrapped in plastic, and dingoes, which I needed to look that up just to make sure I knew what I was talking about. These wild feral dogs are digging at the plastic because they smell that there's a person there. He's able to get them away, get out of this plastic wrapping, only to discover he has no earthly clue where he is, where his vehicle is, and what in the world is he going to do. If you don't know, the Australian outback, it's larger than half the United States. So think about like half the United States just being completely rural, rugged terrain. That is the Australian outback. And he knows I'm somewhere in this giant landmass. So he says, if I'm going to survive, I've got to do something. And so he begins to eat things like frogs, snakes, leeches. He has no food source. Water is the real hurdle for him. He has no access to clean water. And so he's 71 days in, and he's to the point where he's actually drinking, as disgusting as this is, his own urine because he needs some kind of liquid. He is severely dehydrated, severely malnutrition. He has lost 100 pounds, and he has not seen a soul in 71 days, having no clue if anybody will ever find him. By every measurable piece of data we have, he is in a hopeless situation. For somebody just to stumble across Ricky is highly, highly unlikely. And he figures, I'm going to die here. This is it. I'm going to die in the middle of nowhere. I'm lost. I'm dehydrated. I'm malnutrition. I'm going to die right here. Now, in so many ways, I think the sense of hopelessness he feels, we feel, it's different, but we also feel this in many different ways. I was looking up some stats, and particularly our youth right now are struggling with this. The CDC found this. They did a study of risky behavior, surveillance data and summary and trends report, and it lasted over a decade. So it's from 2011 to 2021, and this is what they found, that more than 4 in 10, or 42%, of students feel persistently sad or hopeless. Then a little bit older from that, in 2021, according to the Harvard Youth Poll of 2,513 Americans aged 18 through 29, they found that 51% of young Americans had said that at least several days in the past 2 weeks, they felt down, depressed, or hopeless. And then in a general survey in 2022, the U.S. Census Bureau Household Poll Survey found that 1 in 5 Americans, or approximately 20%, have reported feelings of anxiety or depression or hopelessness. And so we may not find ourselves in the Australian outback, but in so many ways, what he felt out there in the middle of nowhere, we feel deeply in our hearts. Yesterday, some of you may or may not know this. We have this dear saint, Simone is her name, and she was one of the founding members of our church in 2015, an incredible saint. She battled cancer for the last 4 years, and at age 48, she passed. And yesterday, this auditorium was full of people in some ways had tasted just a little bit of what it feels like to have no hope. What I love about the Advent season is on day one of it, we turn our attention, we fix our eyes, our gaze on hope because we desperately need it. We're going to find ourselves in the book of Isaiah, Isaiah 9. It's going to be a very familiar prophecy that you've heard before. And yet we're going to read the entire prophecy, and you're going to discover that there's features to this prophecy you were just unaware of, or they're not always read. Now, Isaiah, his ministry was about 700 years before the birth of Christ. And he had this tough ministry. Part of his ministry is he's going to go to everybody and go, hey, all of you need to repent. Okay? Even you religious people that think you have it all together, you need to repent. This is false worship. And so he had a very difficult ministry, calling people to repentance in various ways. But also his ministry is full of prophecies that would be fulfilled in the life of Christ. I would encourage any true Jew that has not trusted Jesus to go back and reread Isaiah, because there are clear indications that this is all pointing back to Jesus. This is one of those passages. We're going to start chapter 9, verse 2. It says this: the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them has light shone. You've multiplied the nation. You've increased its joy. They rejoice before you as with joy at the harvest, as they are glad when they divide the spoil. For the yoke of his burden and the staff for his shoulders, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the trampling warrior in battle tumult, and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. Now here's the part we're all aware of. For to us a child is born. To us a son is given. And on the government shall be his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace, there will be no end on the throne of David over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. Saying there's a point that something great is going to happen. Now, again, we've heard some of these verses. For us, a child is born, a son is given. We've heard that portion. Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Prince of Peace. Those are very familiar terms, familiar passages or verses to us. However, did you see how it starts? The people who walked in darkness. Then it reiterates this. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness. Whenever you see the Bible refer to the term darkness, it's highly symbolic. And you have to understand what is Isaiah actually trying to say here? He's trying to say something using the term symbolic. Darkness is symbolic of two things: evil and ignorance. Evil in the sense of the world is full of rebellion against God. We've tried to take the throne away from God by how we live, the decisions that we make. The Bible uses the word sin, transgression. The earth is filled with evil and sin and brokenness. And the results of that are quite devastating, right? And we see the results all around. Ever since the Garden of Eden, we live in an after Eden state. where things are messed up and broken, and we see the moment that sin entered into the world, and there was this promise that if you don't trust me, death will enter in. And we see again, all the way back in Genesis 3, something was set in motion, and we feel its effects today. But what was it? Well, we know this, that there was this great separation because of our rebellion with us and God. Our Creator and the creation now has a division between it. We've failed to trust him, we've rebelled against him, and now we have this major hurdle in between us, sin. And not just that, now we also experience tensions between one another. Like, let's be honest, how many of you are not looking forward to seeing some family members this holiday season? Yes, there's some hands raised. Brave, very brave. They likely don't go here. We know that there's tension in relationships. Things are not as they ought to be. And also, you just look at the world, the cosmos have felt the effects of this. The world is in a cursed state. It is broken. It means evil, and the results of evil are unfathomable to us. Just, they hurt. And it also means ignorance. Have you ever been in a room that's completely dark? I mean, like completely dark. Not a shred of light is entering into that room. If you've ever been in a room or out in the middle of nowhere and experienced that level of darkness, you realize you have no idea where to go or how to go. You're just kind of stumbling forward. My kids, here's the problem. So you have kids, and this is me, I'm a jokester. So I have kids, and I've been playing jokes on my kids all their lives. And one facet of this I didn't realize is that when they get older, then they're going to start playing jokes on me. And so we have in my bathroom, it's pretty dark in there. We've got the blinds shut and everything else. And so when you turn off the lights, it's dark. And so, a few months ago, just taking a shower, just trying to be clean, okay? And then what do my kids do? They think this is the perfect and opportune time to shut off the lights on Dad and shut the door. So Dad doesn't know how to get anywhere. Completely ignorant, right? If you've been in that situation, you know it's very difficult to stumble forward. Darkness is symbolic of both evil and ignorance. And that's how he starts this great prophecy that we celebrate. Going, hey, the whole world lay in darkness and evil and in rebellion. The whole world lays in ignorance. And of course, we feel that deeply today. This is kind of a depiction of what we get to experience today. If you don't believe me that we live in a world that is fundamentally broken and dark, just scroll through social media a little bit. Just watch the news, go to the latest bookstore. The largest selection is self-help. Why? Because we know something's broken and we're trying to crawl our way out of this thing. And yet we're ignorant. We don't really know how to do that. And so we live in a broken, messed up world, just like the people who heard the original prophecy. And you know what we've tried to do? We've tried so many ways to make things right. We want to make things right. We want to amend what is broken. We know things are not as they ought to be, and so this tension of how things ought to be and how things are, we want to bridge this gap. And what we quickly realize is nothing has worked. If you go back to chapter 8 of Isaiah, the people of Israel, they know something's broken. And so they're going to these, in a mystical society, they're going to magicians and mystics, kind of like palm readers, and going, hey, how do we fix what's broken? And the Lord's like, that ain't the answer. They don't know. They're in darkness just like you. And in our modern day world, like we may not be visiting a medium, a palm reader, but we certainly are looking to things to fix us. We look to technology, medicine, state, government, careers, finances, relationships. By the way, none of those are inherently bad, but we have to understand their limitations. Technology isn't inherently bad. It's how we use technology. And we know that it actually can't save our souls. No matter how good our pocket computers are, they can't save our souls. They're limited. Even the best government can rule and reign, and we know that laws can't bring about change inside the human heart. They can restrain it, they just can't change it. So it doesn't matter where we're looking, we realize how fruitless it is to try to change the evil and the darkness. But he offers a very unique solution here. You think about the unique solution that he offers to this dilemma. We are walking in darkness, evil, ignorance. What's the solution? To work harder? To go to mediums, to look at technology or government or finances or career or relationships? He goes, no. The hope of the world is found in this light that is dawning. He says it twice. The people, in verse 2, who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them has light shone. Now, light is also symbolic. So if darkness is symbolic, well, this term light that he's using is also symbolic. So anytime you read light in the scriptures, it means a few things. It means life. Whenever you see light, there is light. And we know this all the way back in grade school. We learn about photosynthesis. There can be no life on earth without the light of the sun. We need it. It is vital. It is critical. You remove light, we don't live, we don't exist. No, we need light to flourish. That is what is symbolic of light. Beauty. You realize, man, I look way better in a dimly lit mirror. But then you put a spotlight on my face and you see all the imperfections. Well, it also reveals everything that is. It's truthful. Light is depicting what is light, life, beauty, and truth. And what is this great light? Well, he ends it with what we all know, right? A child's born. To us, a son is given. The great light that is dawning on humanity, what we so desperately need is there's a child that's born. And then Isaiah goes on to give him titles and names. What are the titles and names? Mighty God. Everlasting Father. Wait, how can the Son be a father? Well, it means he's head of all. Creator. Wonderful Counselor. He is the great all-knowing. From eternity past to eternity forward, he knows everything, every detail of our lives and what occurs here in our universe. Every detail he knows. Wonderful Counselor. Prince of Peace. He removes everything that breaks shalom or peace in our world and in our hearts. He will begin to remove all of it. Something that's very clear is we need something outside of us to save us. We can't fix ourselves. There's a darkness, a gloom over humanity, and we need something outside of us, a light. And the solution, he goes, is this child. And this child is unique in nature. It's very, very clear that he is God. Something that we'll focus on over the next 2 weeks is something that theologians call the hypostatic union. It means that Jesus has these two natures. He is fully man. We'll look at that next week more in depth. He's fully man. So everything that you and I have been through, flesh and blood, he knows what it's like to hit his finger on a hammer and to experience physical pain. He knows what it's like to have tensions in the family. He knows what it's like to experience the death of a loved one. He's fully man, but he's also fully God. And here's why this is so vital. Because man can't save himself, though he owes the debt. The Bible is an entire story, a redemptive story about this. God comes and brings salvation. The Bible is primarily not about us, but how God has redemptively worked in history to save his people and ransom his people for his glory. That is the thrust. And so here we sit in darkness and there's nothing we can do about it. And then what does God do? God, in the most unique and special of ways, comes down, brings salvation by becoming fully man. But salvation alone belongs to the Lord. He brought it in. He ushered it in. Going back to Ricky McGee. 71 days, there he is. He is lost. He is hopeless. He needs someone to intervene from the outside. And as it unraveled here, on day 71, there was workers on a remote cattle ranch that stumbled upon him. There's a picture of how he looked on that day. As you could tell, just lost 100 pounds, and that's after experiencing just a little bit of fluid, getting a little bit of food. That's how he looked. He was immediately taken to the local hospital, and he was treated for everything and ended up making a full recovery. He was restored. And in so many ways, though imperfectly, this is a great depiction of the gospel. See, Ricky was lost. He was hopeless. He needed someone from the outside to intervene. We are lost and hopeless. We need someone to intervene. But here's what makes the gospel even better. The cattle ranchers stumbled across Ricky. It was by accident, by chance, that they just stumbled across him. But the beauty of the gospel is God pursued us. It was intentional. It wasn't by accident that he sent his son. He goes, no, I'm going to go save my people who right now are shrouded in darkness and ignorance and evil. I'm going to go down and I'm going to save them because of my great love and give them a hope. Because I know apart from me, they have no hope. And so let me end here. If you are not a believer in Jesus, you know, what is really unique about the Christian message is it is incredibly loving. God pursues us, right? Intentionally. He comes down and saves us. But it's also incredibly humbling. Because to receive Jesus, I have to go, I'm a sinner. I have no hope apart from him. I needed him to intervene. And so, Jesus, you are my hope. I can't clean myself up. I can't just stop drinking and then you'll love me. I can't just stop treating people this way and then you'll love me. I can't fill in the blank. And it's like, Lord, I don't have any hope but you. Let me put it another way. What if this Christmas you're around the Christmas tree, it's Christmas Day, and you're with your family? What do we get on Christmas? It's the things we ask for, the things that we want. But what if on that day, somebody got you something you needed? So they hand you the present, and you're beginning to open it up, and it's this book. And the title of the book is Overcoming Selfishness. That's a hard book to receive. Or how about battling greed? You open it up and you're like, battling greed? Let me look at this tag again. To receive that gift is incredibly humbling because there's an acknowledgement that I need this. And so the gift of Jesus is both a loving gift, but a humbling one. And so if you are not a believer, I get it. This is a hard pill to swallow, that we're dark, we're lost, we're hopeless, we're evil, we're ignorant apart from Christ. We need his intervention. And to receive him amidst all of those things. But I would say, where else can you go? How else can you be restored and fixed? And finally, for the Christian, There's a publicness to our faith, right? And I think if there's ever a season to be public with our faith, it's this season. Jesus, in his most famous Sermon on the Mount, we went through it last summer. He goes, hey, you are the light of the world. I'm putting my light inside of you. Light has dawned, and now when I save you, when I redeem you, I put it inside of you. And I don't want you to be a city that is like in the valley and dark. No, I want you to live in such a way that you're like a city on a hill that lights up the whole area. I don't want you to be like a lamp and a basket goes over it. No, I want you to be a lamp that's on a stand that lights up the entire house. In other words, Jesus is saying there's a publicness to your faith. And what we do is we don't point to ourselves and say, hey, look at how good I am. No, we're bringing the light of Christ everywhere we go. John Stott, he was a famous pastor, theologian. He said this, then people will see us and our good works, and seeing us, they will glorify God. For they inevitably recognize that it is by the grace of God that we are what we are, that our light is his light, and that our works are his works done in and through us. And so let me make it really easy. If we're talking about having a public faith, culture says don't share it at work. Don't share it in public settings. You keep your faith private. And Jesus goes, you don't keep your faith private. You're a city set on a hill. You're a lamp on a stand. You take the light I put in you and you push back the darkness in whatever area I've called you to push back the darkness. A simple way that we're encouraging you to make your faith public is just a simple invite. We have these Christmas Eve invites. I mean, people are so receptive on Christmas Eve to joining you. They're saying, yes, I'll come with you on Christmas Eve. I'll go to one of those services. So what if this week you took one of these and it's a coworker, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, and you said, hey, I would love for you to join me. As we celebrate the birth of our King, I would love for you to be there with me. And you invite them. We're just asking you at some level to make your faith public this week.